I spent my entire adult life at war as a Navy SEAL, and I don't want to send our young men and women into harm's way. I certainly don't want to do that. So if we can do this by applying the maximum pressure that President Trump is speaking about, then that's what we should do. But again, we cannot trust the Iranian regime to have a nuclear weapon because they will use it. So if that means kinetic strikes into Iran, then that's what it's going to. If that's what it's going to take, then that's what we're going to do.
Kinetic strikes into Iran. You heard it here. Representative Derek Van Orden, who is a Republican, told Americans that they might have to go to war with Iran on Israel's behalf. Now, he didn't mention Israel, but that's the fine print here. So what Van Orden did not tell the audience is that the war with Iran would have tremendous consequences for the United States, and it would be absolutely catastrophic, especially if you thought the war in Iraq was catastrophic. This would be worse, and I'm gonna make that case in just a moment. Before I do though, let's get to a little more talk about Representative Van Orden. So Maria Bartiromo brought him on to discuss the ongoing concerns over Iran's nuclear program, a nuclear program that Iran would not have had Donald Trump remained in the Iran nuclear deal that was negotiated and agreed upon during the Obama administration. But of course, he ripped it up, paving the way for Iran to continue enriching uranium, which can be used to build nuclear weapons. Now, after meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the following: over the last 16 months, Israel has dealt a mighty blow to Iran's terror axis. Under the strong leadership of President Trump, I have no doubt that we can and will finish the job. So what he's referring to there is we need to strike Iran. And he is goading the United States to do that on behalf of Israel, much like he did in regard to the preemptive war in Iraq. So on Monday, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson responded to Netanyahu by saying, when it comes to a country like Iran, they cannot do a damn thing. You cannot threaten Iran on one hand and claim to support dialogue on the other hand. And when he's referring to dialogue here, I think he's making a reference to Donald Trump because, earlier this month, he told the New York Post, I would like a deal done with Iran on non-nuclear. I would prefer that to bombing the hell out of it. That's a good thing. It's good that he said that. He continues, they don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. If we made the deal, Israel wouldn't bomb them. Okay. And then 2 days later, the president also wrote on Truth Social, quote, reports that the United States working in conjunction with Israel is going to blow Iran into smithereens are greatly exaggerated. So he had previously made some statements on the campaign trail about how, Israel should essentially target and bomb, nuclear sites in Iran, but he is clearly now backing off from those statements. Now, Van Orden told Bartiromo that the United States and Israel will do, quote, anything it takes to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. I mean, if that's true, again, the Iran nuclear deal should have remained in place, but they're not interested in a peaceful diplomatic solution. They want war. Okay, people make a lot of money off war. And I'm not talking about a lot of people. I'm talking about a small group of defense contractors and weapons manufacturers who love war. They jump in it, okay? They revel in it. So let's listen to what Congressman Orden has to say.
We need to make sure that the Israeli government has as many munitions as they need, first and foremost, to continue the fight against Hamas and Hezbollah. But also, if they need to strike into Iran to prevent these people from getting nuclear weapons, we need to facilitate that. We need to make sure that we have the intelligence capability and that they have the intelligence capability to take care of any issues that we might have. So again, I want to be explicitly clear to the mullahs in Iran. Every option is on the table to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon.
Except every option is not on the table. The real option, right, the diplomatic peaceful option would be to make a deal similar to the Iran nuclear deal that has checks in place. It involves other third-party countries that can come in and do examinations to make sure that Iran is not, in fact, enriching uranium or building nuclear weapons. We had a deal like that in place, but Trump ripped it up. Because at the end of the day, the war machine tends to get the last word. So it's now been several years where I've been fearful that we were going to get dragged into a war with Iran. I don't know what will end up happening with Donald Trump, especially considering the fact that there's a huge portion of his base that does not want to engage in war with Iran. But Van Orden is the typical compromised by corruption congressional lawmaker. So what do I mean by that? Well, in the 2024 campaign cycle, AIPAC donated $5,000 to his campaign. Not that big of a deal, although these politicians they're cheap prostitutes, okay? They're not really expensive. They're not looking for high-end escorts here. So, but he has collected a total of $97,500 from pro-Israel lobbyists throughout his congressional career, which is not a lengthy career, by the way. He was elected in 2022. So since 2022, he has collected nearly $100,000 in campaign donations from pro-Israel lobbyists. He also visited Israel along with other House Republicans last April. Now, AIPAC's YouTube channel, this is my favorite, even has a video featuring Van Orden. Oh, good boy, good boy. Yes, why don't you dance for us? Now let's talk about the consequences of going to war with Iran, because they have been somewhat restrained during this ongoing war on Gaza, and that's probably because they want to avoid a war with the United States. If they strike Israel and kill a bunch of people, which I really, really hope they do not do, well, that is going to spark a massive war with the United States involved, and they don't want that. However, don't mistake their restraint for lack of military capability. Now, the hawkish language from Netanyahu and our own politicians is concerning, especially with the Wall Street Journal reporting that both the Biden and Trump administrations concluded that Israel is, in fact, planning or considering an attack on Iran this year. US military support and munitions would likely be needed for an Israeli attack on Iran's heavily fortified nuclear sites, given their complexity, US military officials said. So that's serious. Okay, the US would absolutely be dragged into it. And Trump allegedly wanted to avoid it, right? He wants to avoid it. During the presidential transition, some members of Trump's team considered the viability of Israel launching preventative strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, including having US forces join Israeli aircraft in a bombing campaign. Now, as president, Trump has said he prefers a negotiated solution. And look, I want to be clear about something. I don't care about all the other stuff that he's up to. On this issue, if he is telling the truth and he wants to find a diplomatic solution and avoid war, he deserves credit for that. But let's wait and see, because there are all sorts of nefarious figures surrounding him within the Republican Party who are thirsty for war with Iran, okay? There's a financial incentive involved. There's corruption involved. I have no question that there are some influencing factors that could, point Donald Trump in the wrong direction. But if the Trump administration chooses a military solution instead of that negotiated solution, well, then the United States, in my opinion, and in the opinion of actual experts and analysts, is in a lot of trouble. So look, as we've reported on the show previously, war with Iran would actually come at a massive price for the US. So Iran's military is designed to prevent such an invasion and impose significant costs on any potential attack by air or sea, according to The Hill. So let me give you some more details on what their military capability is and what this could look like. So in 2012, Pentagon officials estimated that such a strategy would require a minimum of 100,000 troops. Following escalations with Iran in 2019, Pentagon officials estimated that a version of this strategy that sought to destroy Iranian nuclear weapons facilities would require a minimum of 120,000 troops deployed throughout the Middle East. And let me be clear, a ground invasion? Oh, that would be a lot worse. Analysts estimate that any ground invasion would require 1.6 million US troops, almost 10 times what the US committed to Iraq at any given time. Upon arrival in Iran, Washington would face the 13th largest fit-for-service population in the world, the 13th most armored vehicles and self-propelled artillery in the world, the 9th most towed artillery in the world, and the 8th most mobile rocket projectors in the world. So again, do not mistake Iran's restraint in response to Israel during this current war on Gaza as weakness or lack of military capability. Don't be Vladimir Putin and assume that you're gonna go in and end that war within a week. We would be dragged into a war that would be endless. And it would be disastrous. Our service members would die. Some of them would be maimed, and it would all happen on behalf of a foreign country that bribes our politicians legally. It's just wrong. And I think it's disgusting that you have these lawmakers going around egging on a conflict that they're not gonna fight in. They're probably not gonna send their kids to, okay? Your kids are probably gonna be sent to a war like that if they're service members as we speak. It's ridiculous, it's gonna be costly, it's gonna be deadly, and it's so irresponsible to promote this idea just based on what Israel wants. And that is in fact what's happening here.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.